What happens during the eccentric phase? Well, now you've got to you've got to stabilize, maintain, control the weight back on the way down to put yourself in a position to be able to do another repetition. There can be no sustained success unless you follow through on the endeavor that you start. I often tell you that everything that you do inside of the gym is practice and preparation for life outside of it. And today I'm going to explain to you one of the profound lessons that you can gain from performing a single repetition of a lift. I don't care what the lift is, you decide. But a single repetition can teach you so much about how to conduct your life. So let me just start by saying that I am Mark Johnson, the founder of Bounce Pep, bringing you ideas for a fit and flourishing future. I'm also the youngest son of Bill Johnson. Glad to have you here. I want you to leave comments whether you agree or disagree. I enjoy reading your comments, and if I can respond, generally I will. So go ahead and leave them. Also, please like. With all that saying, I know you don't have time to waste, so let's just get right in here. We're going to be talking about what performing a single repetition of any lift can teach you about how to conduct your life. Now, you know that when you're lifting something, you have a concentric phase and an eccentric phase. So if we look at a shoulder press, for example, you're going to be holding a barbell, you're going to press up, and then you're going to bring it down. When you're pressing upwards, that is the concentric phase, okay? When you're bringing the bar back down, that is the eccentric phase, okay? You cannot perform another rep until you complete the eccentric phase. So you've got to do one concentric contraction, and then you've got to follow through with an eccentric contraction to bring the weight back down and put you in a position to be able to do another repetition. Now, you might be asking, what in the world does this have to do with my life? Well, it all comes down to a very simple thing that I call the eccentric principle. But before I tell you exactly what that principle is, let me just talk about this lift a little bit more. What's happening during the concentric phase of a lift? Basically, you're literally lifting the weight. You're lifting the weight against the force of gravity, okay? So you're initiating the movement, lifting the weight, and getting it up. What happens during the eccentric phase? Well, now you've got to stabilize, maintain, control the weight back on the way down to put yourself in a position to be able to do another repetition. Okay, so this is what's happening. Very, very importantly, during the eccentric phase of your lift, I want you to understand that your muscles can actually handle more weight than during the concentric phase. This is very important for you to get right now because it's going to relate to something that I say a little bit later. Okay? Now, with all that said, what exactly is the eccentric principle? Now, the eccentric principle simply states that there can be no sustained success unless you follow through on the endeavor that you start. There can be no sustained success unless you follow through on the endeavor that you start. What do you see when you go in the gym? You see people rushing through repetitions. They're really, really gung-ho and really, really excited about the concentric phase, just getting the weight up, right? And then during the eccentric phase, when they're lowering the weight, they're a bit less careful. They're not as interested in doing that properly as they are in simply getting the weight off of the ground. The lift is the exciting part. The lift is where they feel like they're earning their stripes. And the eccentric phase is de-emphasized for a lot of especially inexperienced lifters. They don't understand the importance of the eccentric phase. And so they don't pay much attention to it. They're not intentional about it. But I want you to be intentional about the eccentric phase, because outside of the gym, the eccentric phase is going to be very, very important in your life. Now, what did I just tell you about the eccentric principle? Okay, there can be no sustained success unless you follow through on the endeavors you start. So let's give you a couple of real life examples here. We'll start off with relationships. Now, if you think about when you're in the gym and you're doing, let's go back to that shoulder press, you do the initial lift, that's the concentric phase. That would be like courtship and the wedding, right? So you're all excited, and you are dating, and there's flowers and candies and nice dinner, conversations, or now people text back and forth. But when I was growing up, we had the telephone. We would just talk on the phone for hours. But let's set all that aside. The bottom line is you're going through the courtship phase and everything, and then normally the ladies are all excited about the wedding. That's a big deal, and so there's all of this pomp and circumstance around everything leading up to the actual marriage, right? So that is essentially the concentric phase. And then what you see, of course, is half of the people that get married now can barely stay together for a couple of years. Okay, and if you think about the actual marriage itself, that's essentially what the eccentric phase is. That's the follow through. That's the follow through to everything that came before. All of the courtship and all of the beautiful words and all of the flowers and nice dinners and candy and the huge wedding with all the guests and everything. That was all fine and dandy. But now you are married to the person, okay? And the marriage is actually the heavier portion of the lift. Remember what I said. During the eccentric phase, your muscle is able to handle a heavier load than the concentric phase. And that's what I'm getting at. You see, after all of the excitement, you still got to follow through on what you started. So if we look again at a relationship, at a marriage, for instance, okay, now you're married. Now you've got the rest of your life in front of you with this person, and you've got to do the right things. You've got to, maybe have some failures, some mistakes, learn from them, overcome, work together, and just build the marriage and be in it for the long haul. That's the follow through, right? That's a heavier load, and you're capable of handling the load, but you've got to be intentional. You've got to be intentional about that eccentric phase. You've got to be intentional about maintaining, about stabilizing a relationship, right? So this is an example of the eccentric principle working in your life. Mark Johnson here. I'm excited to invite you to join Bounce Pep's 3-day VIP focus and follow through retreat here in Kyoto, Japan. Your time is the most valuable asset that you have, and you can't waste it. So I want you to come join me. I'm going to work with you personally. We're going to work on what your true purpose should be at this point in your life so that you can focus in on it and you can follow through and make progress. You're going to be treated like a true VIP. You're going to have 2 days of the actual program where we do a bit of work, and then we're going to have 1 day where you go on a curated tour through the legendary city of Kyoto, Japan. If you've never been to Japan, this is your chance. Let's take another example. For those of you who are running businesses, if you're in business that nothing can really happen if you don't make sales. So everything that happens up until the sale is the concentric phase. All of the customer outreach and prospecting and handshaking and meetings, everything that happens up until you make that sale or sign that contract is the concentric phase. And it feels great when it happens, right? That's the exciting part, making that sale. What a celebration it is when you get the sale. But guess what? You still got to follow through. So after the sale, You still got to say, thank you. I'm looking forward to more business in the future. You still got to provide the right after service. You've got to be able to address customer concerns, dissatisfactions when they occur. You've got to be agile and respond in a way that allays your customers' concerns, any kind of misgivings that they have, because you want to be able to stabilize that relationship and maintain it. And if you perform the eccentric phase correctly, just as in the gym, it will allow you to perform another repetition. Another repetition in this case would be getting another sale from the same customer because you paid attention to the eccentric phase. You paid attention to the after service and everything that needs to be done after the sale to maintain that relationship in a healthy manner so that you could get another sale. Okay, that is the eccentric phase. That's the eccentric principle working for you. And this is what I want you to understand about the importance of the eccentric phase in your life. I want you to apply this principle. And when you get down to it, the eccentric principle is really about follow through. Do you follow through after the initial lift, after the initial excitement, after the initial accomplishment? Do you follow through so that you can maintain a proper relationship and then you can carry forward in the future with more success built on the same formula of the concentric plus the eccentric? The eccentric. I want you to pay attention to how you follow through in your life. Don't overlook the follow through, okay? So that's my message for you today. I want you to take this with you. Talk to you next time.